because they're not going to photo touch us after this. Are we ready, Josh?
Yeah,
All right, so we will call the public hearing to order. It is 6 p.m. on Monday, August 15th. I know you're all ready to do a Pledge of Allegiance because that's what we normally do. But we are going to have the highway engineer do a presentation for you on the screen. There were packets available also for you to follow along. Some of the commissioners may come out into the audience, not to make you uncomfortable, but just so that they can see the screen rather than watching on paper. It'll take roughly 20 minutes, so I hope that you can patiently sit through it. It will probably answer a lot of your questions. And then after Dave is done with the presentation, we will open to the public. Usually when we have the public come do comment with us, the public speaks to us and we listen, and that has worked very well. What we're gonna do before we go to public is us as a board is kinda gonna discuss, because as many of you noticed when you came in, there was some talking over here and what do we do and how do we handle this? And we kinda wanna be able to respond to you while you're here. And so we're gonna get a little bit of a consensus on the board on how we do that so that it's fair to everybody to have the opportunity to speak and for us to answer you all respectfully and have a good discussion here this evening, because this is very important. So we will start with having Dave do the presentation. Commissioner Gamble?
Yes, if I may, Madam Chair, this is probably stating the obvious, but because the handout is present, that as you go through, if a question comes up in the presentation, just suggest so that have clarity in the asks or the comments, that you might note that in the space that's provided, so it'll help recall. That's just a comment.
Okay. Dave, you are up.
All right.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening, actually, used to morning board meetings. So this is a funding mechanism that we've been talking with the board about and among staff, and so this is what's called the Greater Minnesota Transportation Sales and Use Tax. So just running you through a few things here. So a presentation outline, just really quickly what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about the demographics, just really quick in Cook County. Some of you know, maybe some of you don't. A little bit on how that affects what we do at the highway department and how we're funded. Just a quick look at our road and bridges and our overview, our costs for maintaining our roads. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the transportation sales tax and how we're proposing that it be implemented, and then just some quick key notes at the end. So Cook County, we are the 82nd county in terms of population on that. Hennepin County, of course, is number one at 1.2 million people. We have 5,176 residents, although I think, Brady, that just got changed, I believe, if I remember right.
In estimate, yeah.
By a few on that. But we're 13th largest in land area. And how that affects us is that we're serving this large mass area with our road system with a very small population of full-time residents on that. And we are last in population density, so people per square mile. We have 3.6 people per square mile in Cook County on that. There's 87 counties in Minnesota, in case anyone doesn't know that. And then we are, the other issue that really affects us and how we're funded is we're 90.73%, or almost 91% publicly owned. So that is non-taxable land, but we still serve that land. We serve the forest roads with our highway system. We serve the DNR roads. We serve the private roads with our highway system. With that, so kind of what kind of roads do we maintain? Our roads pretty much break up into two categories. Our county stated highway system, or CSAH, we just say short CSAH. If you ever hear me talking, I'll just talk about our CSAH roads. Those are roads numbered 1 through 23 in Cook County. We have county roads, and then county roads, which are roads 24 through 103. And this is kind of how they break out. So our county stated highway, we're about 60% paved. So 179 total miles of county state aid highways. We have 118 miles of county roads, and you'll see only 6 of those are paved. 112 of those are gravel. for that. So our total road system that the county maintains is about 297 miles of road. Little bit more than that in the wintertime. We take care of the grade. Of course, those of you who don't know, we also plow the grade as an agreement with the Forest Service and at the direction of the board many years ago, and that's to keep a primary highway open east-west off 61 and to allow for logging to occur during the wintertime. This is just an overview of the map. You're not going to be able to see a lot of detail. Later on, if you want, these maps are in the back, attached to the wall. But if you can see, the blue roads on there are CSA routes, or county stated highways, and our red routes are our county roads. Just a quick look at those. We have insets for Lutzen, Grand Marais, Holdland, and Grand Portage up there. In addition to the roads, which kind of come with the roads, are bridges, and these are large valued assets for us. We in Minnesota, a bridge is any elevated structure or culverts or combination of culverts that span 10 feet. So in Cook County, we have 59 bridges. Right now, we have 15 that are structurally deficient. We have 2 that are functionally obsolete, and we have 1 bridge that is closed. That is not open to traffic. And again, this is just a snapshot. The details available in the back there. Just where all our bridges are. There's little stars on where all of our bridges, but they're scattered throughout the county on that. So, our current needs for our roads. So in the back there was a project list, and that is not ordered by anything other than it's by county road and by road station going up. So starting on one end and working your way up on that. But we've identified about $162.4 million worth of needed improvements on the roads. 98 million of that, 98.8 million of that is on our county stated highway system. And almost 54.1 million is on our county roads. In addition to those county roads, we have $10.6 million worth of bridge needs right now. We also have in that list we have $465,000 in gravel pit development projects. For those of you who don't know, we are in the process of swapping land with the Forest Service as part of exchanging our land in the boundary waters for Forest Service land outside the boundary waters. Identified in those lands are lands for gravel pit development. As I'm sure some of you may know, gravel is, believe it or not, a pretty scarce quantity up here, and good gravel pits are very hard to find. On the project map, you'll see some little gravel pit symbols on the project map. There's 3 pits that are identified right now for improvements. One is up on the Cross River, up the Gunflint Trail, and one is north of Highway 8 and west of the Ball Club Road for a gravel pit. Additionally, we've identified about $350,000 worth of inventory projects that we'd like to have done. A full and complete deep inventory of all of the culverts that we have, driveway culverts, cross culverts, things like that. And then our centerline files are difficult, and our centerline descriptions that we have in our road files, our official files for the roads, were done a really long time ago, and so we'd like to get that more precisely defined and things like that. And then a sign inventory. We do not have a good sign inventory, and that's actually a mandate that we're supposed to have with by the federal government for that. So we would our proposal is that we would utilize that some of that money to get those inventory projects going. They're very labor intensive. And then we also have a little short of $14 million identified in facilities for our projects. Our current facilities are in really tough conditions. The Grand Marais site is short on short on space, quite a bit short on space. We have energy efficiency issues in all of our shops. And we also have some structural issues with some of our buildings. They're in tough shape. Covered salt and sand storage is needed. Those regulations are working their way into reality from MPCA. We do not have that available to us. Right now we are borrowing covered storage in Hoagland and Tofty, but those buildings are small and inadequate for us. And then in Grand Marais, we store at the shop at the MnDOT shop, and that site, we've been notified by MnDOT that they want us to move off that site. So we would not have, and that's the bulk of our salt sand pile, and we will not have a location for salt and sand in the wintertime once that happens. So how are we funded? The first is through state funding. Our revenue sources are fuel taxes, the motor vehicle sales tax, and vehicle lease fees, license fees, excuse me. Well, generally I call gas taxes. Those are distributed to us 50% by needs. It's a complex formula of an inventory of all the roads and what all they have, how many lanes they have, the width of the lanes, the soil types, everything that kind of encompasses what it takes, what you need to build a road. So 50% of the funds are divided there. 30% are by lane miles. Cook County has one of the smaller lane mile systems in the state, very similar to a lot of counties, but we're on the lower end of that. 10% by motor vehicle registrations, and that's one of those metrics for how that's divided that hurts Cook County, because we only have about 5,400 cars registered in the county versus hundreds of thousands in other counties for that. And then 10% by equalization, and that's just, they take 10% of the money divided 87 ways, and each county gets so much money for that. So our annual construction allotment right now is 1.9 million. That's for just building roads. We also get 1.27 million for maintenance of our highways, and that's annually. And this money can only be used on roads 1 through 23. It can't be used on roads 24 through 103 on that. So with these distributions for 1 through 23, you can see we would need 50 and a half years of this dollar amount right here, the construction allotment, to fix our roads as they stand for just that $98 million that we've identified for our county state aid highways on that. So we also received some federal funding. The latest federal highway act is called the FAST Act. It's a 5-year surface transportation bill that Congress passed. It's funded again through motor vehicle sales tax, and the federal gas tax has not been increased since 1993. So that's although for me that doesn't seem very long ago, but that's actually quite a long time ago. It's 23 years ago now on that. So this provides us about $500,000 a year. $500,000 every 5 years on that. So that federal funding reduces that time frame down to 48 and a half years. The problem with these numbers here is we only design our roads to last 20 years. So every 20 years you should be doing a major project on a road if you follow the design life. Additionally, we do receive some highway safety improvement funds. And it's a competitive grant program through, we compete with all the counties for that money. It's funded through the federal gas taxes, and it's just for small safety improvements. If you saw the major striping project we did 2 years ago, that was funded with highway safety money. The lights up at Double Track Four Corners, that was funded with highway safety money. And those are generally all pretty small projects. And it just said the same thing I did, so, just now, so. And then local funding, so we also have, the other source of revenue we have is the local tax levy, our property taxes. And, that is our only source of funding for roads 24 through 103. And it's, right now, the county's total property tax levy, or last year's property tax levy was a little more than $7 million. Of that, almost 1.9 of that was for the highway department. And in our current budget that we're operating under now, we have $125,000 budgeted for maintenance projects. So some of our larger projects. That doesn't include replacing a driveway culvert or things like that. But what it is, you know, maybe we do a ditching project on a road for a long distance, or we replace a major culvert crossing, or things like that that are fairly expensive for that. So, and the property tax levy is our only source, again, for the roads 24 through 103. And with a $54 million project list, and that $125,000 funding, that's 432 years to get through our roads on that. So you can kind of see it, kind of get a good idea of where we're at as far as we're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole, and it's not going, right now it's not going really well. So in 2013, the legislature gave all counties a chance to for an alternate source of tax, and this is the Greater Minnesota Transportation and Sales Tax. It's just for counties outside the metro area, but the county may set up to a half a cent sales tax by resolution of the board following a public hearing. And so today is our public hearing for the consideration of this. The proceeds of the taxes have to be dedicated to, there's a number of items in here, but the one that really applies to us is the capital costs of a specific transportation project. So it doesn't go for our gasoline for our trucks, and it doesn't go for equipment. It doesn't go for salaries for our maintenance people. It just goes to pay for fixing a road or a facility or something that's related to the capital projects on that. So this tax is for it has to be attached to a list of projects that have to be specifically part of that tax, and then the tax would expire when the project list is paid for on that. So how does it work? Half percent local sales tax levied anything on that's subject to your sales tax. So your clothing wouldn't be taxed, or your food wouldn't be taxed, and those things that are exempted on that. And then just many of the items, and there's just a list of many of the items that are not taxable: wood, propane, LP gas, electricity. So our proposed timeline, or what we're proposing to the board is that we're having a hearing today. Right now, if the board chooses, following the public hearing, we would hope that the board would pass a resolution, and we're hoping if everyone agrees to this and the board is in agreement of this, that possibly we can do this next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, not tomorrow. Under this timeline, the Department of Revenue would send notices to businesses in the fall regarding the tax. And then the start of the sales tax would begin January 1st of this year. So it's a little bit of a drawn out process, but it'll take a little time to do that. And at that point, we would start developing plans for for these projects that would be funded with that. And then we would anticipate, if we're under this schedule, that we would see our first project under construction in 2018. Right now, we are doing just-in-time engineering. So for us to develop a plan will take us, for a smaller project, it will take us a good year to do it. We'll have to, survey is a big thing. The wintertime really slows us down on doing projects. So, once we get something surveyed, then we can work on it in the winter, but under this timeline, I don't think that we'll have time to get everything surveyed, or any additional projects surveyed this year, So the impacts, we just, to the county, so last year, based on our 2015 sales tax collections, last year we would have collected $750,000 for transportation projects, or under this tax. Sales tax, and if, for those of you who were here when we did the 1% sales tax, I was not here then, but you'll remember that we estimate that about 70 to 80% of this funds is generated from outside the county. On that. And if I know $750,000 doesn't seem a lot, and when you look at those dollar amounts, it's not a lot of money. But if you look at what that is, if we were to not do the tax and still add $750,000 to our budget and add levy, that would be a 10.6% levy increase. So it's pretty significant increase, and that's 10.6% of the total county levy, not even for the highway department. It's a much larger percentage for the highway department levy, portion of the levy. And that would be borne by just the 5,000 residents, or essentially the 5,000 residents that are property owners within Cook County for that. So what would it cost me? We just gave you a couple, and there's some examples in your handouts on, we grabbed some local receipts. So the first one here is a grocery store receipt. The total was about $58, $59. There's only about $4 taxable. So that would cost 2 cents. Dairy Queen receipt over there too was a $4 purchase, and again, just 2 cents. This is a receipt from a local building supply store. That was a $26 purchase total, and all of that was taxable. And the transportation sales tax would be 13 cents. And then the last one we have is a parts store here in town. There's a $151 purchase, but only $73 of that was taxable. But as you can see, on $73, it's only 36 extra cents for this bill. So our implementation strategy. The priorities for the highways will be set by the board. We'll make recommendations to the board. But some of the things we're looking to do is we're looking at level of service, and that'll be changes in traffic volumes, ongoing maintenance problems, roads that have frequent traffic interruptions due to weight restrictions, things like that. Looking at system continuity. So it's kind of an engineering term, but basically, do our roads kind of flow, or is it just kind of do we have a network of good roads, good main arteries that can serve a lot of the county? And so that's kind of part of that too. Bridges are certainly that's a big part of highway safety. So bridges are definitely something that we'll look at as far as prioritization goes. Pavement preservation, maintaining our pavements so that they will last longer. We have not been doing proper scheduled major preservation projects. So milling and overlaying every 15 years to extend that service life from 20 to 25 years to out to 50 years if you follow the program. If you do that stuff in front, but right now we're kind of in that just dealing with the worst pavements right now mode. And then strategic improvements, and those would be, for instance, a factory comes in, and then all of a sudden we have to build a road for them to provide jobs for the county. That would be a strategic improvement. Another one would be all of a sudden an area starts breaks loose and there's a large development that goes on. Certainly we're going to want to serve that traffic volume with a better road. And so that would be kind of a strategic improvement. Just a snapshot of the project list. Hopefully you all have a copy of it. If you don't, there's one in the back. It's not readable. We don't intend to. That's just my reminder to remind you that the project list is there. And then final thoughts. So why support a transportation and use tax, sales and use tax? So the funds are dedicated solely to transportation projects. They provide an ongoing revenue stream that would be used long-term planning and project delivery. And they address the needs throughout the county. One of the things that I didn't mention too, when we talked about that 10.6% levy increase, that is not inflation adjusted. What happens with sales tax is because cost of goods and services go up, our economy grows, that sales and use tax grows as the economy grows and as inflation. So it's inflation adjusted. For us to keep up with that 10.6% levy increase, it would have to be increased again and again and again every year to keep up with the inflation that we see in construction. The bulk of the revenues would be generated by really the people that use the roads. We say non-county residents, but really what we're getting at is it's not about the tourists and it's not about the people that don't live here all the time. What it's really about is the people who are driving on the roads. Every wheel load that goes across the road damages the road just this little tiny bit every time. And so those wheel loads add up, and it's like bending a paper clip. You can bend it quite a few times, but eventually that paper clip's gonna break, and the more you bend it. So that's really what we're talking about there. And the revenue stream, the best thing about this is, in my opinion, is it allows us to fix our worst roadways, replace deficient and obsolete bridges, and provide some strategic improvement in some pavement preservation projects, which is really ultimately what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get along with system. And from there, that's the end of my presentation. How do I do time-wise?
Not too bad. He doesn't usually do presentations. He's an engineer. He's a very good engineer. There's new faces in the crowd, so although many of you may know us, I'm going to do something that we don't normally do, and I'm going to have each of the people on this side introduce themselves, including you, Mr. Brady. So if you could just state your name and your position.
Brady Powers, Auditor Treasurer.
Jan Severson, Commissioner, District 3.
Frank Moe, County Commissioner, District 1, which is Colville, Holden, and Grand Portage.
Gary Gamble, Commissioner, District 2.
He's also our vice chair. I'm Heidi Dukirk. I'm the board chair. I'm the one with a lot of gravel in my district. I'm of Gunflint Trail and Devil Track area.
Jenny Storley, and I represent Lutsen, Tofty, and Schroeder.
Jeff Cadwell, County Administrator.
Okay, thank you very much for sitting through that and being very patient with us. We have a sign-in sheet. When we have you speak to public comment, I'll need you to write your name down. I'm just gonna give the board a second here to discuss how we're gonna work with you this evening, and I'll separate those papers so we can kind of keep the flow going a little bit, and we'll have the microphones kind of play off of each other. Is everybody comfortable with an open discussion with our community this evening, rather than just having them talk to us and not respond? Go ahead, Commissioner Moe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would like to be able to discuss it with people that are here. I'd also like to have the opportunity to make a comment, so if we could do that now before discussion or after, and that would be your choice.
I'd like to have our comments at the end after the public has their opportunity.
So,
Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. So Mr. Boyd was very anxious to speak to us tonight, so his name is on first, so we're gonna let him talk first. And then, so when you please come up, if you could just write your name so we can read it, we just need it for our records. Don't be shy. Jim Boyd, you start for us.
I'm not shy. I thought I was just signing the sheet that said I was here, but I'm not shy. Please excuse my radio voice. I had a bunch of kids up at Grand Portage at the rendezvous, and they all got a cold, and as they left town, they gave it to me.
It's a gift.
I commend the board for taking this important issue up. This is really good work that you're doing, and thank you for doing it. We had I'm Jim Boyd. I'm the Executive Director of the Cook County Chamber of Commerce. We had a chamber board meeting last Thursday at which the County Administrator, Jeff Cadwell, basically made the same presentation to the board that you've heard here from the county engineer. It was well received, and the board at the end agreed that we should strongly endorse this approach to maintaining our roads. This morning, I sent, because we're a member-driven organization, I sent a note to all of our members telling them what the board had voted to do and that I was going to be here tonight. And I would like to read you just what I told them, because I'm preaching to the people who know most of this. But I said, of all the responsibilities of county government that support a strong local economy, maintaining safe, well-constructed roads and bridges is number one. Number two, of course, is human services. You're a subdivision of the state. But the thing that you do on your own that is most important to us is roads. At the current rate of investment in road maintenance, it would take the county hundreds of years to clear the backlog of maintenance that needs attention now. That is not a hopeful prospect, nor can Cook County rely on state and federal funds to fix all of our roads. Therefore, unless something is done, the problem of substandard roads and deficient bridges will just get worse and worse, sapping the strength of our economy. Recognizing that many rural counties in Minnesota are in a similar situation, the legislature has authorized each county to impose a 0.5-cent retail sales tax for transportation. The proceeds of the tax must be used to finance a specified list of urgent road projects. It is estimated the 0.5-cent retail sales tax would generate about $750,000 per year. The county would sell bonds to finance the road projects now and use the yearly retail sales tax receipts to pay debt service, which is principals and interest on the bonds. By doing it this way, the county can ensure that 70 to 80% of the cost of these road projects is paid by visitors to Cook County who buy things while they are here and who drive on our roads while they are here, as the county engineer pointed out. This approach also makes great economic and fiscal sense because the county has a very low level of bonded debt, interest rates are historic lows, and the federal, state, and local economies could use the boost in jobs and income that road projects would provide. This is also a much fairer, more effective, and more efficient way of funding long-term road projects than using a local property tax, which concentrates the burden of paying for roads and bridges on the locals who live here all year round and own businesses here. So I sent that out. I asked for responses. I didn't get that many. It was only a day, but this was a quick turnaround thing. Almost all of the people who did respond were positive. Some of them reluctant, but positive. One was supportive, but wants the money distributed to the commission districts in which it was collected, which I told him, frankly, I thought was the worst idea I'd heard all day. We're one community, and we should be spending this money, in my humble opinion, where the greatest needs are. You know, I still have a worry about the DNR roads on the east end and the Forest Service roads in the rest of the county that won't get much from this. You know, but you're taking care of your own system. You're trying to take care of your own system, and I think you deserve a round of applause for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Does anyone wish to speak or ask the commissioners any questions? If you could please step up to the microphone and write your name down for us. If you choose while this gentleman is speaking to come forward, if you could please step up to the other microphone and write your name down so we can keep this moving. Hello, sir.
Hello, my name is Steve Persons. I live out on Linnell Road. Been there a while, been in the county a while longer. I'm opposed to this, and I come to this whole thing with not very much background information, but what I'm seeing is a very long list of projects without a lot of support to convince me that those are indeed important projects. Some are, I'm sure, but we have some funding out there now that could probably tackle the high priority stuff. I don't see $750,000, even if that's what comes in, as putting a significant dent in the backlog. If we're using those numbers to say that we got 432 years to do our maintenance jobs, I gotta really wonder who's been planning the maintenance. That's a big backlog. And you're not gonna knock it off even with this sales tax. So I think I'd like to see some more information. I'd like to see that project list really carefully vetted, really looked through with a fine-tooth comb to pull out the high priority work and see where we are at that point. And that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. I can a little bit address your questions since Commissioner Gamble and I have been here the longest. Before Commissioner Gamble and I were elected, there was roughly $500,000 or more that was allocated for the projects that didn't have the extra funding. And then that was reduced before Commissioner Gamble and I came into office. And the first year that we went through the budget process, there was $38,000 allocated to the highway department for unfunded highway projects, all of our roads that we don't get the 1 through 23 on the funding. And then we've been trying to gradually increase that, but as you know, we've been faced with huge increases that we tried our best to reduce. So the first year we were able to double that to 75. And then last year we were able to bring that up to 125, but again, we're nowhere near the 400 to 500,000 that we had allocated for those projects. And so the 432 years is if the county continued to only give the highway department $125,000 towards its projects. Mr. Betts, did you have anything else to add to that equation?
Actually, well, just a quick idea of how this would do with the, oops, got a different number. So the 432 years, if we just do the $750,000 annually, that drops that to 72 years. That's a major impact in our backlog. If we would assume a 3% growth on that, that drops it to 38%. We've done some other growth, 38 years, excuse me, that we've done some other growth items on that. But it's a significant amount of money, and I know $750,000 doesn't seem like much, but you compound that over 10, 15, 20 years, it's not going to instantaneously fix all of our roads. There's no possible way to do that, but it's really a start towards actually getting a quality road network and a reliable road network for the citizens and the businesses in the town.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just another comment to that too. There's, on that list, we're also, and Dave could confirm this, we're also assuming that we don't get any additional outside money for those projects, and some which would be eligible for outside money.
Some would definitely be eligible for outside funding, absolutely.
Mr. Paranis, you're up next. Sir, if you'd like to ask a question, could you
How many
please,
roads are gonna shut down?
sir, could you please write your name down on the
Or
paper?
do I have
and
to
we-
go through that whole, I just
Yeah.
wanted to
We
ask a
do
simple
just-
question.
Just
Okay.
so everyone can have a fair chance to ask a question.
Okay.
Mr. Pranis
So-
was next. Mr. Pranis was next.
Bob Pranis, Pike Lake Road. I just had some informational questions, and that's regarding the funding for these roads 1 through 24. It seems like we get a lot of tourism traffic, and sure, our population is really low, but does the county the state take that into account at all? The fact that we have so much tourism and they use our roads, and yet we don't get in, they just look at our vehicle registration and things like that.
For that portion, the vehicle registration, that portion of the gas tax apportionment, that is what we call it, for that is just those vehicles registered in Cook County is all that is. So the only thing that tourism slightly affects is in the needs calculation of the traffic volumes, which is a small part of the needs calculation, but generally, no, we do not get any extra gas money because we're a high.
But it seems that's a big factor
It is a very big
in
factor.
damaging our roads, and yet it seems like something should be done at the state level to kind of change that. But
Well, this is one way.
Not arguing with us.
Not arguing with, yeah, none of us are arguing with you. And the state does come up here frequently and do measurements
Yeah.
of road traffic.
And the other question is, how, when you have the roads 1 to 24, what makes those, the roads that get state funding and the other roads don't? What determines that?
In the rules and legislation that set up the state aid system is what it's called. There's county and municipal state aid systems. There are rules as far as which roads can be. They're supposed to be major collectors, minor collectors. So in a network, you've got the little local roads that feed the collectors, and the collectors feed the arterials, and that's kind of like how your veins work in your body. And so they're supposed to be collectors or above. They're supposed to provide a continuity of system. In other words, not just dead-end roads, but provide a destination from one system to from one major location or one major highway to another highway, and really provide the purpose of the whole system was to provide a network of roads that could handle commercial traffic, was really what it was set up for, and provide good all-weather roads. The problem is that the funding hasn't followed that good all-weather road system. So, and so that's kind of how they're all set up. And the state aid system is all done by board resolution. We last made an adjustment in 2008, I believe was the last year on that. We moved a few roads around. We dropped the Parent Lake Road off the state aid system, was one of those roads that got moved. And so, certainly we look at that periodically, but it's kind of a big deal to change your system around, so we don't do it very often, but we do look at it periodically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prentice. Sir, you would like to go next? Could you state your name for the record?
David Turk. I'm from up in Hoagland area. Want me to write my name down now?
Yes, please. Thank
I thought
you.
this was just going to be a discussion. I didn't know.
It is, but for the
Parliamentary
record,
procedure.
yeah, for the record, we just need to have your name.
Oh, that's right. I'm on camera. Hi, Mom.
Yes. I hope she's
How many
watching.
roads are you shutting down?
None.
Why?
That's not my plan.
I know it may not be your plan, but we're the ones giving you the money. I'm just wondering how many roads are going to be shut down?
Well, first of all, I can't shut them down. The
Okay.
board would have to direct me to shut down a road, but I don't see a need or a reason to shut down any of our
But isn't this the need? You're coming here like a hippie with a hand saying, we need money. People plan things out. People build roads, but they don't think about how they're going to maintain them, and then they come and say, give us more money. So it may not be in your plan, and I'm not pointing it all on you, I'm pointing at these people here who started this whole progressive plantation that we are up here, depending on state money, depending on money from St. Paul, federal money, rather than making us self-sufficient. Every single time we turn around, you're asking for more money. And you watch this ISD 166 is going to come out and keep pushing this thing until they tax us more. But on any system, I run a house. If all of a sudden I can't maintain what I have, I start cutting things out of it. So roads, when were they built? 50 years ago or longer for logging? Environmentalists have kicked out logging. So what do we need the roads for? What, so somebody can go up and fish in some obscure little lake? So instead of going, wait a minute, let's start cutting out some of the fat on this thing here rather than every single time, because of bad management, because of this idea that we can get money from other people, and that's the most inefficient way of spending money, is when others spend others' money. And there's no push to make us self-sufficient. Everything is going to the state or the feds, getting IRRB money, which this county should never have gotten in the first place. Put out their hand and say, give us some. Start regulating more so only rich people can live here. Oh, nobody else can live here now, so we're going to make public housing? Come on, the government makes the problem, and then they come and say, we're going to be your saviors and fix the problem. So getting back, let's cut out some of these roads that aren't needed. Let's not ask any more money from people until the people who are running the show start acting responsibly and start being self-sufficient up here. One of the reasons I came up here is because this has always maintained itself throughout history without going to the ups and downs of the economy, of the rest of the country, the rest of the state. This place has always been able to maintain itself because it wasn't reliant on the rest of the people. So I come up here in '94, and what I've seen is a deterioration. It's like everybody is putting their hand out. They're praising grant people, grant writers, get us a grant, but they all come with strings attached. Rather than cutting out all the state and all the federal monies and trying to get all that stuff, how about starting to set this place up to where we're self-sufficient like it's always been up here? What's going to happen is that the economy in the rest of this country is eventually going to belly up, and we're going to go with it because you're so attached to the rest of the economy. It doesn't have to be that way. Everybody's jumping in this whole thing of environmentalism, global warming, and all this. This is foolishness. This place can maintain itself, it has maintained itself, and it's only the management who has taken us down the road of putting us on a plantation where we're going to be dependent on government for everything. And you guys just can't see it because you're part of it. So I'd like to see some roads cut out rather than taxes go up. I'd like to see, what do we have an HR guy for $75,000 that we're hiring? Does this county need a human resource? I just read it in the paper last week. Does this county need a $75,000 position for human resources? We have computers. People are intelligent. They can deal with that themselves. It's like we're becoming a big bureaucracy. And I'm sorry if I'm venting here, but when he says we're not going to shut down any roads, that to me is bad business all the way around. And I know I used to live in Edina for 23 years, and I've gone to council meetings there. You guys all have your plans made. It's all going to happen. This whole meeting right here is just something to go through the process, because you've already signed, sealed, and delivered this half-cent tax. Not that it's going to kill me, but it just shows bad management, bad foresight for what's going on in this county right here. And shame on you, shame on all of you for following that line and going along to get along, because we're just the sheep out here who can keep paying your bills for your mismanagement of everything else. So there you go, I'm putting my address down, I'm done talking, you can get somebody else, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am. Can you state your name?
Yeah, I'm Pam Doris. I have two unrelated questions, actually. Who's going to be doing the work on these roads? Are they local contractors or are
It's our
people
highway department.
locally?
Yes.
Okay, you're not bringing people up from the Twin Cities to do anything or...
We've had to bring in larger contractors for our larger project. We'd send out for bid. I'll let Dave answer this question.
Yeah, any project that we do over $100,000 in cost, we're required by law to bid, and that those bids are competitively bid, and whoever gets them, gets them. If somebody can come up here from the Twin Cities and do the work, then they would certainly get that bid as long as they are
A
qualified.
little clearer than whoever gets it. We also are required by law to give it to the lowest bidder.
Right,
Yes.
right, unless they're an unqualified bidder.
Yeah, qualified bidder.
Or unqualified bidder. But typically on our large projects, we're getting contractors out of Duluth or out of Glora. I'm trying to think, kind of over towards the range. On that are our big three contractors, but certainly local contractors are always allowed to bid and are encouraged to bid.
And some of the larger contractors use some of the local contractors.
As subs, absolutely.
As subs, yes.
Yeah.
And you had another question?
Thank you. Yeah, the other part was, I realize we're not taxed on food and we're not taxed on clothing. But those of us that live here, we're often doing ongoing repairs on our houses or even trying to build houses or whatever. I'm wondering if the hardware and the lumber suppliers and stuff that would, they're not supplying things to tourists, and they're not supplying things to people who live in Ontario, and they're not supplying things to the big heavy trucks that go through and use the road. So can we somehow get a waiver for locals, if I went into Superior Lumber and said I need X amount of goods, I'm a local, could they just waive this tax for me?
They cannot waive a state tax for you, but they do offer local discounts. Most of our local vendors do. Okay. Ms. Campanaro?
Hello, my name is Pat Campanero, and I live at 264 East Murmur Creek Road, and I drive County Road 45 or Pike Lake Road daily. Although I'm anxious to see this road improved, I can't support this proposal as it currently stands. A sales tax disproportionately affects our neighbors who earn the least in this county. These are the people who perform the majority of our service jobs and are critical to our economy. As a share of their income, the poor pays a 7% rate on sales and excise taxes, while middle-income families pay 4.7% and the wealthy pay less than 1%. Under this proposal, the people who can least afford it will pay more dollars out of pocket in perpetuity. I really had a struggle with that word. The examples in this presentation appear very small. However, this 0.5% is added on top of the current county 1% and the state sales tax rate of 6.875%. I am also leery of establishing a tax without a prioritized list of projects. By prioritizing the projects, citizens can better see the results and then weigh in on whether they support this method. Realizing that the county needs to jumpstart this backlog of projects, I suggest the commissioners look at structuring this task like the successful 1% sales tax that is currently in effect in the county. Create a list of priority projects that will be funded and sunset the tax when they are completed, perhaps looking at a 5 to 7 year window. This process will allow the then current commissioners to evaluate the project's success, prioritize the next round of projects, and then vote to continue or perhaps discontinue this process. This approach accomplishes several things in my mind. People will more likely support the tax since they know it has an end date and will be reviewed in the near future. It takes the trust me factor out of the equation. As the proposal currently stands, any of the projects on this 2.5-page list could be funded regardless of need. And third, it takes away one more excuse for all of us to avoid buying local and instead buy online or out of county where these taxes do not apply.
No.
So that's my points.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Ms. Peterson, can you state your name?
Hi, my name is Jill Peterson, and I'd like to say that I think that this is very innovative thinking. I'm very much for it. It spreads the burden basically over people that use the road system, as far as I can see it. And the last thing I'd like to say is I hope Pike Lake Road is on the list.
It's on the list. Charlie? If you could please state your name for us.
Hi, I'm Charlie Laboda. I'm a small business owner, excavation contractor here in Cook County. First thing I would like to just comment, I do have a hard time supporting this, with the facilities on the eligible list. I think that makes it really a lot harder for the public perception of this process to feel like there's a lot of integrity in it. But with the money going into the roads, I'm very much supporting it. Our business is very tied into the roads. We can't function without the roads. We see every year with weight restrictions, being on longer on problem areas that don't get addressed, direct loss of revenue for that, which varies on each year based on weather. But I believe if these projects can get done, that will really help that. I mean, it's a long-term process, but I think it will really help. I'd like to just offer one example of a benefit that I think would apply to really any business in Cook County in some fashion. It'll be different for everybody, but the costs of doing the jobs should be reduced. On a project recently, Sawbill Trail got done. County was able to get that paved. I initially was skeptical of the project, and I'm working there now and eating my words. I'm able to reduce my haul time by 5 to 10 minutes safely And that's coming into a $10 to $14 per load cost savings for projects happening in the Schroeder, Tofty, Lutsen area. So that, to me, really offsets the half cent. In some form, as these projects get done, those cost savings should get passed on to the residents. Anyone who's hiring a contractor, and specifically, I think, is where those savings would be seen most. For the moment, that's all I have.
I have a question for you, and you don't have to answer. As a new owner of a gravel pit, are you comfortable with the gravel pits being on this list?
That gets into another question, whether county resources can be used privately. That's not necessarily a discussion for today, I don't think, but.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's another one.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to come up and ask any questions of us or of Dave? And if we didn't mention, Lisa is here. She's our financial superstar over at the highway department. Well, she's not really a superstar because she can't
that
pull
your
$1 million
top
out of the air. But
I can't remember
she
what
makes
the
very
title-
little money go a very long way. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. My name is Jim Doherty, and I'm a resident of Pike Lake, at the end of Pike Lake Road. My wife and I have used the Pike Lake Road for over 47 years. We had the Pike Lake Resort. We have built many cabins, houses. I've logged out there with people that have used Pike Lake Road for logging trucks for many, many years. I've drove school bus for Cook County for many, many years. 4 trips a day over the Pike Lake Road. And I know the Pike Lake Road. I've been there, done that. Used to be, latter part of March, road bans went on. The 10th of June, the road bans went off. Doug Brenner and a lot of the other loggers that have taken care of, they stockpiled their wood, hauled truckloads of wood out the Pike Lake Road. I never thought much of it. Go to the Bavinall's Corner, once in a while a log would come up where they'd had put logs in the road, and we'd throw the log out of the way, and the trucks would keep rolling. And yeah, there were punchy sparks in the road, and you know, we just lived with it. But now, since it's been about 10 years, I don't know what has happened, but the Pike Lake Road has deteriorated. There hasn't been a logging truck over that road. You know what our logging industry is like. And here we're blaming the tourists, the little fancy cars for tearing up our road. There's got to be more to it than that. Somewhere down the line, we're making a mistake. We're not handling, because I know the Pike Lake Road is a substandard road. It has a substandard base, and we all know that, isn't I mean, we can live with that. I can live with a little bit of, but what we've been living with for the last 3 or 4 years has been pretty bad, folks. It's torn up my car, and my wife has to drive to town, and she can't even get through because of the way the road, the conditions of the road. There's got to be something more to it. I'm going to offer this suggestion. Within the last 10 years, we have changed the way that we build our Class 5 or our rock and things that we put on our roads. We are going to a clay base more than a rock base. And what I think is that we have capped a substandard road to where it cannot breathe, and where it cannot get the water to get away from it in certain spots. And in that way, we've caused ourselves a lot of problems. And now the county, they're out and they're doing their best to try and dig the ditches wider and try and get the water away from those areas, and I hope it works. But I wonder if it will. I think that we've caused ourselves a lot of problem with what we've put on top of our roads. That's just my point of view. That's just what I've seen over the years. And and one other thing, as far as myself and Jody, we live at the end of the Pike Lake Road. We're not asking for a paved road. We're not asking for a road that's perfect. We're just asking for a road that we can get through and depend on. That's all. And I don't know if any of you have driven over that road. And I'm telling you, boys, it's considerable. And so I think maybe we have to really give some thought to just getting us a road that works. We don't need pavement, we don't need sidewalks, just so we can get through. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your years of service to the community. You're welcome to call my house and speak to my husband. I have the itty-bitty car out there, and he explains to me quite frequently that if I didn't step on the gas so much when I pull out of the driveway, he wouldn't have to continually fix our driveway. So I just had this discussion again the other day with him, and he claims that it's me and my car, so. Good afternoon, sir. Could you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Pete Harris. I live in Croftville. I'm a member of the Highway Advisory Committee with the Road and Bridge Department. I think what this gentleman was missing is that in Cook County, the problem is that we've got 1,600 square miles of area. We've got 5,000 people, and we've only got 300 miles of highway in this big area. So it's not like we have a road in a lot of parts of the state. Section lines, there's a road, county road on every section line and stuff like that. That's not the way we live up here. I would like to suggest to him that he take this list and scratch off the roads that he doesn't think that are needed and give it to the highway department. It would be a good exercise for him. This thing that the commissioners can evaluate tonight, this whole list is very important, but it doesn't have to be prioritized for all of them. You can pick out the most critical projects from the list with representation of those projects in each commissioner district and go for something that might sunset in 10 years. So you give the thing a chance. It seems to me like the only way that a small number of people are going to be able to maintain the roads is through this type of a tax. It's working very well for St. Louis County, which wasn't mentioned, and maybe some people in the audience aren't aware of this, how it's been developed. But I think that it's something worth trying for a period, and then if it's successful, there's no reason why you can't just keep it going or reinstate it. But if people are worried that it's a forever thing and it has to include all of these projects, it doesn't. You can decide how to take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to ask any questions or speak to the board? Good evening. If anyone else has a question, you're welcome to come up to the other microphone and wait until this one is done. Could you please state your name?
Judy Boots. I also live on Pike Lake Road. I've lived there for almost 45 years. Of course, I want that to be on the top list of this. I am low income, but I am for this 0.5% sales tax because I cannot longer live with the frustration of driving on that road. It is a dangerous road. It is so, since I've moved there, I think the traffic on that road has quadrupled 100 times the traffic. A lot of tourist traffic, a lot of summer traffic, a lot of local traffic. That road has not been maintained for years. You put Band-Aids on it. We spend thousands and thousands of dollars putting Band-Aids on these roads. Pike Lake Road has been there for probably 100 years. The reason it's falling apart is because all the base underneath it has fallen. Why did we have to get to this point? Why do us people on Pike Lake Road have to call our commissioners over and over and over to get help? We call the highway department, nothing, nothing. I have to go to my commissioners to get the highway department to come out and take care of our road. A few years ago, my property value went down by $5,000, but my property tax went up by 77%. I want proper maintenance on Pike Lake Road. You have heard from so many people tonight on the condition of Pike Lake Road. Why do we have to scream and holler to get what I feel we should get with our property taxes? What do I get for my property taxes? Well, the sheriff would come out, I think, if I needed him. But other than that, road. I want my road maintained. I don't want to have to drive down that road at 5 miles an hour and go in the ditches to get through Pike Lake Road. The bus driver put something on Facebook about Pike Lake Road. I mean, it's a joke. My friends won't come out to see me because they don't want to drive Pike Lake Road. So I am for this 0.5%, but like one of the other gentlemen said, I don't want it to go to building a new building for the highway department. No way. I want it to maintain the roads in the county. And I want to know who's going to decide which road gets the top priority. Do we as citizens have to come and scream and holler again? Or is that going to be up to the highway engineer to decide what road he's going to fix? Who's going to make that decision? Can anyone answer that?
I think Jeff was prepared to answer.
I'd be happy to answer that question, ma'am. The prioritization of this list is not a part of this conversation today, and I'm going to answer your question, I am. But I'm going to preempt that comment by saying this conversation is about the fact that we have unmet needs in the county, in our highway system, and that we have 3 options. Do nothing, use the property tax, or use this other tool. That's what this conversation is about. That's what turning this tax on is about, the conversation. Prioritization of those projects is, as it always has been, it is a recommendation of the staff. He's got the training to be able to do this. He's got the knowledge. He's got the history and the records of our roads. It is also vetted through public comment. We have a highway advisory committee that will be seeing those lists. But it is always by the authorization of the board that projects are scheduled. So nothing gets done until it is into a budget and approved by the county board. So there is public comment in all of those processes. There's comment. There's public input in the advisory committees. Nobody makes the decision alone. It is, of course, on the recommendation of staff, and Dave Betts gave us a list of the priorities. Public safety is one of them. Traffic volume is another. What kind of repair can we make that's we're going to get the most bang for our buck, so that we're efficient with the use of those tax dollars. So prioritization is outside the scope of this. I think everybody understands Pike Lake Road is a big need, but prioritization is not done by any one individual. Eventually, it's authorized by the board.
We also have a
Well,
highway
if you're
committee.
talking public safety, then you should fix Pike Lake Road. That road is so bad that if anybody who didn't know that road
I've
were
driven the
driving
road.
down it, they would be in a bad accident.
I've driven the road, and I've driven, in all honesty, I would invite people who are not from here to go drive roads other places. I know Pike Lake Road is bad, but I tell you what, in the rest of greater Minnesota, it's not that bad. It's really not
So Judy, Judy, I have a lot of commissioners who have hands up, and Pike Lake Road goes through more than one district. So I'm gonna let each commissioner answer you.
I just want to say one thing. I have another job where I drive all of the county roads. So I know that Pike Lake Road is the worst road in this county.
I meant other county roads within the
Other
state of Minnesota.
counties.
Outside
Well,
of
I
Cook
drive
County.
other county roads in the
There's
state
life
too.
outside of Cook County.
No road in the state is as bad as Cook County.
So
as
Judy,
Pike
you
Lake
kinda
Road.
answered why Pike Lake Road hasn't been fixed in your comments, is that the board has not been able to give the highway department enough money to fix your road, and so we've continued to Band-Aid it, which isn't gonna fix it.
No.
And so, I don't know if I've ever told you, because I know that we've spoken a lot about your road. I think, Dave, before I even took office, you and Russell took me for a ride on Pike Lake Road, which made me very ill. And it wasn't Dave's driving, but he drove me the whole entire length of the road to try to convince me that I had to give you money to fix your road. So I know that the engineer cares very deeply about your road, and it's just that his hands have been strapped with the financial situation we're in. Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sincerely appreciate the comments. This is the way that representative government is supposed to happen. This is why town hall meetings are held close enough to be able to saddle a horse and get there and get home for dinner. And the intent is to be able to have public participation to inform your elected officials so that they can make informed decisions and be sensitive to your concerns and things that you support. Since being a commissioner, as Commissioner Dukirk has alluded, it has been very frustrating. If I were sitting as county engineer this evening, it would be tearing me up inside because of the fact that he, as a professional, as an engineer, understands the challenges. There is no money. The state of Minnesota is in the top 10. I think we're 5 or 6 as far as infrastructure in the United States. 50% of our infrastructure is over 50 years old. And to the comment that was, made by David with the roads, responsibility is a big part of what we're entrusted with, and we want to be responsible. There are many things that are mandated to us, and it is very frustrating to be told what we have to do without that partnership of funds that help us in doing what we've been called to do. And so every year as a commissioner, dealing with the budget, we come up with the highway department, which is one of our larger, if not it's the largest line item. And we're always looking to try to find money to reduce the impact of levy on our citizens. We're taking money which could be used to try to do the patchwork, basically, because there isn't the money. And the requests that come before us in the budget say, we need this money to do this because we've identified these needs. And then we as a board say, it's very difficult to raise the levy to that extent because of the impact on our citizens. Since I've been a commissioner, when it comes to making decisions relative to priorities, I need to know that the recommendations that are coming from the county engineer are recommendations that are based upon an analysis of fact and not based upon who screams the loudest or what district I live in or who I know. It needs to be a disciplined process that identifies real need with limited dollars. That is brought to us, we look at it, and you're correct. It's up to us to make a decision as to whether we affirm the allocation of those dollars or not. We have been limping along. You've seen through this legislative session, there has been no allocation of dollars for transportation. And so consequently, we sit in a situation where we're supposed to be partnershiping with these responsibilities, and yet we're not getting it. So do we sit here, or are we resourceful as a county and find ways that are less impactful financially, being sensitive to the financial impact, and yet trying to do something to mitigate this problem? And so the forestry is saying we don't have any money to do anything with roads anymore, and we have a lot of roads up here that are forested roads. And those roads will go away because money has been prioritized to deal with wildfires, and the forestry says we don't have any money, so those roads will go away. So yes, there are situations where we will lose what we have because there's not money. So we, as resilient citizens, have to determine where we choose to try to make this less impactful. To the issue of prioritization, I agree, that needs to be something that comes from an assessment from people that have lived here as long-timers who provide information that help us to understand maybe our methods could be improved. But we need to do something, and as Jeff has said, our county administrator, we can do nothing. We continue to limp along and try to patchwork, which frustrates people and gives the impression our county engineer doesn't care, which is farther from the truth. And we can also take this step to try to do it. I think the issue of identifying and prioritizing is an important thing and an expected thing. And if we sunset those projects because we see those dollars going for designated things that we collectively agreed to, and we see a sign up on our road says, this is where your money went, then we know that our money is being spent well. If we could take our revenues that we generate in taxes up here and have the state give it back to us, and we could spend it with the decisions as representatives of you as the people, that would be great. We unfortunately can't. So we sit and we try to lobby, we try to actively pursue revenues to help us in our different departments. It is excruciating, especially when you're given the responsibility to try to do something. So I empathize with the frustrations. We as commissioners deal with those frustrations every time we look at a dollar that we contribute one way or the other that comes from your pocket. And we need to respect how we spend those dollars. But this is something that we need to do, and I think if we can find a way to, it would be easier in future challenges that come before us to be able to address issues because we've earned that trust by demonstrated stewardship. So again, I appreciate your participation and the comments that are made, and I know as commissioners, fellow commissioners, we are making notes here because it is important that our decisions are informed through your voice.
Commissioner Moe, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the question of allocation, I have a couple issues, and I'll save one for the end. But as to allocation of these funds, I have a different opinion about that than our administrator. I don't think that the board has decided how we're going to go about allocating these. I think we can, as a board, we can decide to have a defined list. As a board, we can ask our advisory committee to work with the administrator to give us a list. I think we have other options, and I'm going to ask the board to review those options before we decide on how to proceed with this.
All right, sir, you were next. Could you state your name for us?
Josh Beck, 214 6th Avenue West. I just wanted to look at this. I moved here recently from an emergency management position out in rural Arizona, where I think we're kind of at your like 60, 70 year mark where we haven't paid for much roads. And just from an emergency management and ambulatory kind of experience, you know, through fires and floods, when we have the weekend roads, they usually were areas where during emergencies we had a lot more issues getting, you know, whether we had to come with medications or prescriptions or search and rescue to get people out. You know, the older roads, whether it needs to be maintained or to the level what he's doing, but, you know, just making sure that, you know, the board realizes that, you know, it's, when we're looking at live, this, you know, it's a lot more difficult when those roads aren't there, and old roads are the ones that usually are affected. And, you know, I had 3 fires go under my act as emergency management in Arizona, and usually the flooding that happens afterwards, and the old roads are the ones that wash out, and all the houses, you know, it doesn't have to be smaller roads, you know, larger roads in town. I'm sure you guys have seen with the Ham Lake fire and what happened after that. You know, what happens after these catastrophic events, and it's very important to have, especially the culverts and stuff in place when these things happen, because when we can't get there with emergency management, or, you know, the sheriff's office or the ambulatory services can't get there, then we can't do our jobs, and then we're talking about real lives. So.
Thank you. Stan, can you state your name?
Stan Tull, and wouldn't you know, I live on Pike Lake Road.
There's the
full disclosure, I am on the Highway Commission. What I really need to make the point perfectly clear is I did not stack this meeting. the people who have talked to you. I'm serious. I don't want you to dismiss what some of these people have had to say, thinking that I did stack this meeting, because I've often
Don't
talked
worry,
about
they
throwing
called
gas
us.
on a political
I'm just
fire.
saying they came on their own.
But I truly tell you, they came on their own, and they're passionate.
Even Pat?
Yeah, well, she came with me. I might have influenced her a little bit. But it doesn't really matter whether I, commit to the tax or not. I just want you to understand that these people were not brought in here. I didn't load it up, even though they're all my neighbors.
Why do you feel so guilty?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to say more, but I think it's best
You
that.
know, Stan, I didn't even think that now until you said it.
Jim Boyd, can you come up to the microphone again? I think everyone's had an opportunity to speak. Some of you may have more questions after you've thought. You have not had an opportunity. Jim, would you mind if he spoke first, since he hasn't had an opportunity to ask a question?
Go ahead. No, just a
Okay.
quick question. I heard somewhere that, just so there are no false expectations here, that if you did this tomorrow, and if Pike Lake Road was the first one on the list, you're probably looking at 5 years before you can get that done. Is that an accurate description of what would happen?
Dave needs to answer that. We all point at Dave.
Yeah, minimum.
Minimum.
5
Before
years.
it's complete.
Yeah, we have to do engineering and,
Engineering, right-of-way acquisition. Right-of-way acquisition will be the big time killer on that. So engineering will take a year and a half at least, and maybe 2, but right-of-way acquisition will be a significant amount of time. So,
we also want the public that's watching live to know that we aren't picking projects based on the number of people that showed up here for one road, that Stan did not bring them here. Our engineer actually has quite a list of age of roads and condition of roads, and so he's prepared to move ahead. And we have one gentleman here who hasn't spoken yet. Please state your name.
My name's Devin Holmberg. I live halfway up Moose Valley Road off of Highway 61. If I could wax philosophical for a moment, I've got to tell you that I was raised on a dirt road in California. And I'm here to tell you that Moose Valley Road looks like I-35 compared to the road I was raised on, which was also a county road. Every October and May, I write Mr. Powers an enormous check. And my frustration with that is assuaged largely because of the road maintenance on Moose Valley Road. I think, and I'm not a technical expert in this regard, but just based on my own personal experience driving that road on a daily basis, that they do a superb job, particularly in the winter. So if that's a pat on the back, that's fine. It's well deserved, I believe. The other thing I would point out to you is that throughout this discussion this evening, we have heard over and over again, there's not enough money, there's not enough money, there's not enough money. In my opinion, road maintenance and road construction are among the most important things that this county government does. The others being police, fire protection. Hospital, another one. So next time somebody comes in and wants money for recreational activities, for other things that frankly I believe are frivolous, think about this meeting, think about the frustration of the people who've been here, and I think the folks on Pike Lake Road are a bit upset about what's going on out there. Think about that when you're asked to vote for some sort of tennis court, golf course, or whatever. As a final note, I would point out that in terms of taxation, not one of my favorite subjects, but if we're going to have it, I want to see everybody who's benefiting from it pay for it. And this is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any further questions before I allow my board to discuss here? And you're welcome to stay during our discussion. The camera will continue to roll. We will continue to be live. If during our discussion you have another question, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and ask a question. So go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to ask Frank, I read in the paper a couple of weeks ago that he voted no on this whole idea, and then I just read last week he changed his mind. Frank, why'd you change your mind?
So, we haven't voted on this yet, Dirk, my knee-jerk reaction, to those of you who know me, is I start at no. Because as Pat said, you know, this is a regressive tax, so those that are less able to pay will pay a larger burden of that. However, many of my constituents, including my friend Nevin, have said this is something that's extremely important. So in the latter century of my life, I'm trying to develop an open mind.
Give me a call.
We all have a set of tools that we use on his mind regularly. He's been very helpful. So we're going to move to board discussion, and we'll start on this. One more person. One more. Oh, there you are. How could I miss that beautiful shirt? I am sorry.
Well, right. My name is Jody Doherty. I live on Pike Lake Road.
Okay, Stan. I know who brought her in.
I live at the end of the Pike Lake Road. And when you said, the gentleman, there you are, when you said that our road wasn't that bad, I've gone up to a place in Canada, it's called Dog Lake, and there's a sign that says the next 3 miles is the worst 3 miles of road you'll ever see. I'm going to debate that. I think our road has matched it. We've blown a lot of tires. The car's 2 years old. Drive very slowly. Watch it like mad. The bottom of our car has to be replaced because of the road rocks beating the tar out of it. Now you turn around and you say, get rid of our roads? Where do you expect us to go? What road? The other day I was going to town, to church, and there was a sign just past Moe's, which is about 5 miles from my house. And the sign said, take alternative road. And I went, where is it? There is no other road. I would have had to turn around and go all the way back home and then go around 157 and up Bally Creek. Now, why was the sign 5 miles from where the road was? Why did I get all that direction? I only had 2 more to go. Now, county engineers, somebody working for your department is kind of nutty, because that was pretty bad. But I have no other way out. In the winter, we're stuck. And if that road keeps getting any worse, I don't know what we're going to do. And I agree that you need to get something done and you need the money. I like your idea. I'm for it. But don't tell me our road isn't bad. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I've lived there since the 80s. First came up in the 50s. Unbelievably poor road. So.
Thank you very much. And it wasn't our idea. Everyone keeps saying our idea, but we didn't come up with it. Sir, could you state your name again for the camera?
Yeah, Steve Persons. Yeah, Pike Lake Road is horrific. I've been on it too. But this, I think, illustrates some of the concerns I have about how these things are prioritized and how we don't seem to have a really good plan. The Pike Lake Road has been really bad for quite a long time now. And yet I just heard that there's no engineering plans for it, that at this point, if the money were to fall from the sky to fix it, it would be 5 years before that job could be done. And yet I'll bet it's been more than 5 years since concerns began to be raised about the Pike Lake Road. There's got to be some, and in that time, what other projects have been done? And were they all more important than the Pike Lake Road? Did they address safety in a more salient way than the Pike Lake Road? I really couldn't say that's true. So I'm quite concerned that this same sort of strange system of prioritization, unless it's settled here in advance, we're going to see more of the same, only with more money thrown at it.
I'm going to let Dave answer that because he sets the priority based on the budget that we offer to him, so I know he's got some answers to that a little bit.
Just a quick comment to that. It cost us money and time to engineer roads, and we're not going to ask Dave to engineer a road that we don't have the money yet to build, because we don't have enough money as it is.
Yeah, I was just looking up, thank you, Commissioner Moe, that was exactly what I was going to say. You know, a lot of people have we've heard comments over the years, you know, why don't you have a prioritized list for the county roads? And that it's because we don't have any funding, you know, and it's true, but what Judy Booth said was it's true, we're just band-aiding on 45. We're chasing the bad spots, trying to get them passable again, and that's all we're gonna do. You know, I was just looking up really quick, our estimate for engineering for the Pike Lake Road is $1.4 million. We can't go spend $1.4 million to design a road and without any hope of funding it. I mean, it's an $8 to $10 million project. It's a massive, it'll be probably the biggest road project we've done in 30 years probably, as far as even if you look at inflation wise. So it's a big project. And so yeah, I mean, we engineer, like I said during my presentation, we're just in time engineering. The projects that we have let are projects that we have funding for, which are on roads 1 through 23. 24 and above, we just don't have funding for it. So would I like to be engineering 8-10 projects a year? Absolutely, I'd love to be doing that. It's what I do, it's what I went to school for, it's what I've dedicated my career to do. But we've got to do what we've got the ability to do.
And an answer for us, when he comes to us with that decision, if he came to us and said, I would like to engineer Pike Lake Road at 1.4 million, or if you give me 1.4 million, the state will give me 1.4 to match to completely finish a road, it's a tough decision. It's not easy for us to say, oh, well, there's free money coming, so let's put money towards the free money. We have to sit here and go, well, when will Pike Lake Road get done? Well, we don't have any future of the money coming in, and so we as a board have to say, well, the best use of those dollars is to complete other roads in the county, and so it's not an easy decision for us either. Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, you know, as people in the community, and I've been saying this quite often of late, the importance of the gift or the attribute of empathy, our ability to empathize. That is to put ourselves in the position of somebody else across in discussion. And one of the great lessons that I had learned, I had a board that asked me, when we're entrusted with leadership, it can be a department head, it can be an elected official, it can be an individual working a job, we're all entrusted with responsibility. And the board said, how can we best help you? How can we come alongside, empathize, and best help you? And my response was, the way you can best help me is to understand the environment in which you've asked me to lead. And I think that's through discussion, we come to understand the importance of being able to put ourselves in the position. We have a county engineer that has very, very little money. The only thing he can do is Band-Aid. We ask time after time, where are your priorities? How do you measure priority? We now want to know that there's integrity in that process. And what do you do when you don't have a full staff? When you've been trying and trying and trying to get an assistant county engineer, but we can't pay enough to attract in this competitive marketplace. There are a lot of things that are very challenging, and then the unexpected comes up the next morning you wake up. So again, I say, if you want to help, understand the environment in which you've asked me to lead. And then as a leader, we don't take advantage of that. We just appreciate the empathy that has existed and willing to come alongside.
Stan, please state your name for the camera again.
Stan again from out in Pike Lake.
Just an announcement, the Pike Lake shuttle bus will be leaving in 10 minutes. They should be on front.
Are you selling tickets?
All right.
Is that the bright yellow one?
Does anyone else have questions for us? Okay. Go ahead. Please state your name again.
Nevin Holmberg. Do I understand correctly that the board here is the ultimate decision maker when it comes to which project would come first out of this money?
That's correct.
I think, given what I've heard here tonight, I think you'd be very ill-served should you start with some of the projects listed on the top right of this sheet.
Maybe David just find the sheet.
Okay.
We'll get to that. I mean, again, this is just for public, and we're not deciding on any of those at this point.
Right, I
But we
understand.
do want
I
to
just-
hear what you say, because it helps
Yeah,
us
in other
decide
words, what I'm
later.
saying is if you get money, use it on fixing the roads.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, so I'm gonna allow my board to have some discussion here. Again, you're all welcome to stay. Ms. Storley's been very quiet this evening, so we'll start with her.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, you know, I go to the township meetings, and I get a lot of input from there, which I guess I'm lucky in this county that I have that access to go to the township meetings, and I get phone calls. And so I listen to all of it, and when we have a chance, like at the Highway Committee, we discuss it there, and we will be discussing it here. And the important thing is that we somehow gather together to make our quality of living in Cook County the best that we can. We can't say, well, your road is not any good, so we're gonna close it down, or we can't say that your road is the best and we're gonna design all the roads according to your road. We have to look at them all.
Thank you. Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just again appreciate the public discussion on this, and I think it's healthy. I know it's very frustrating, especially in today's climate and culture, and wanting to be heard and believing that you are heard is an important thing. So each of us come at this from different perspectives. We come as elected officials representing you. David comes in a position that he's been entrusted with and responsibility and trying to do the best he can with what he has. And I think the most important thing is to have honest, respectful discussions that look at things as they really are and not as we hope them to be in the context of how we want to represent this. So again, thank you for showing up and speaking for myself as a commissioner. It has been very frustrating, and I know Commissioner DeKirk, I think, can certainly relate to this, that when it comes to the highway budget and the requests and the recommendations and the staffing and everything else, this has been an ongoing issue for us, and we need to find some solutions, and this seems to be taking a position that is going to accept that responsibility, do something on the local level.
What the public doesn't know and what Commissioner Gamble doesn't know, and which our engineer David Betts would hopefully never tell the public, is during budget discussions when we had different groups working at the highway department, I threw the biggest hissy fits you've ever seen, language unbecoming to a woman, and threw things during the meeting because of my frustration of where he's at, and him knowing that when it comes to the full board, they're gonna chop out everything that we've discussed during our 2 to 4 hour meetings, trying to figure out how we can get every penny to work for the highway department. And so frustration isn't even the word to describe it. Commissioner Moe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank you all for coming. This is a really important issue for us, as you all know, obviously, because you're here. And as a county board member, answering Turk's question a little bit earlier, I said this, you know, I could probably make a tally of the people that I've heard from on this and actually be pretty close. People I've heard pro and con, but as you all know, you elect us to make decisions. And this is one of those gray areas for me that I have to weigh the information and try to make the best decision I can, at least if I'm gonna support it or not. I said earlier that I believe it's important that we actually have a defined list and a process to do that. We have a highway advisory committee, we have some local expertise that could work with our highway engineer to actually come up with a list, which I'm guessing Pike Lake would be on, but I don't want to say which is the worst road in the county, but I've driven on Pike Lake, and I agree that that's very bad. I would ask you to go drive on County Road 17, and it's probably every bit as bad. So with that will be something that I'll ask the board to pass somehow directing what those projects are going to be, and that will be my opinion. The other thing I want to say is to Nevin's point, I'm not going to deny that we have a lot of facility needs in the county, not just the highway garage, and in particular the Hovland garage is in need of some significant repairs and salt storage space. Right now that's salt storage salt sand is just running off the property into the wetlands around it. So I know that that's a need. However, I didn't hear anybody here, any of the people who are commenting on this, saying that we needed a new highway garage, and I haven't heard that from anybody else. And I just ran some numbers on this, and the recommendation, the cost of the highway garage, which incidentally is on the top of the list. I understand it's not because it's the first most priority, though I do know our highway engineer, and he has been very successful at getting what he wants, and also those things that he believes are most important for the county, and he's good at getting that done, and I know he believes that a highway garage is important. If we were to start a highway garage project and bond for that for over 20 years at about 2%, the cost of that for us would be about $754,754.36. Total interest of over $2.5 million. The total cost of that would be over $15 million. At our last year, which was our best sales tax year, we took in for 1%, $1.5 million and change, and that's where Dave got the number of $750,000 we would take in annually with this. That one project would take up virtually that whole amount of money. That would leave us with only $18,000 a year for everything else that we want to accomplish. And I'm not saying we don't need a highway garage, but because we're asking all of you to increase your sales tax 0.5%, I'm going to ask the board to remove facilities from this list in order to get my support. Because if we don't, we're not going to have any money for everything else that we want to do on this list. So really what we're talking about here is then whether we're going to raise the sales tax for a new highway garage or not. And I don't think that's what we want to do. I think we have some dramatic needs, as you all have said. And so if we're going to do this, we should direct that towards those highway projects that we need to fix. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Moe. Commissioner Severson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing I've learned from being in government is that everything is a there are no no-brainers. And I think when I sat on the outside, I thought there were a lot of no-brainers. And it's really complicated. I sat on worked really hard on the 1% sales tax, and it was a really messy process. The process of advocating for it was pretty clean and clear, but the process of prioritizing was really messy. But I think we got some very good products from it, and the process was messy because it's a democratic process. And we all have opinions, and we all have needs and desires, and just our ways of gathering those needs and desires and prioritizing them is just plain messy, and this will be messy too. It'll probably be a little cleaner because we won't have as many pieces to the puzzle that we'll have to consider. I really appreciate everybody being here. I'm inclined to agree with the folks here that this particular funding, this 0.5% sales tax, is probably not a good place to look at funding a highway garage. But I also believe that we really need one. And that conversation was a lot more interesting to me when we were working with the city, and the city was looking to move their highway garage away from the rec park, which is a really bad place for them to have a garage. And that conversation, was very interesting, that perhaps the city could buy ours and we could move out. And so I think there's still a lot of opportunities and conversations that can happen around the garage, and I'm still an advocate for no buildings last forever. And a department as important as the highway department, they need facilities to house machinery, they need facilities to house salt sand and all the things that Dave has outlined. And Dave has put a lot of careful consideration into all of these plans. So for those people who comment on we don't plan, that's an absurd concept. The tons of plans that Dave has put forth. Yeah, we haven't planned for the Pike Lake Road yet, but I'm hoping, this is my first real vision of hope for Pike Lake Road. And yes, Pike Lake Road is partly in my district, but I'm not a county commissioner who just represents my district. I view Cook County as one county, and I even look broader than that. So I will be looking at this issue from that broad perspective, not just my district. And I hope that we don't get into that sort of competing territorialism, because that's not what I'm about. I look at the whole county and what our needs are, and Pike Lake Road does get a lot of tourist traffic, and tourism is 80 to 90% of our county's economy. So there are a lot of pieces that need to be considered in this. Life is not simple, and the older I get, the more I realize that. And it's just a lot. It's a lot to learn and a lot to process, and we're doing the best we can. And I think we'll come up with a good solution. I know we will come up with a really good solution. We've done it before. The 1% sales tax was done successfully, even though it was really, really messy, like I said. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your input, and I will take it all into consideration. I love listening to everybody's ideas, and I also get the regressive piece about this tax, but I also just feel that to me, it's our only way to really get somewhere with this issue, and it's a huge issue. Thank you.
Dave, I have a question for you that I'm not sure was answered. It seems our road restrictions are getting longer and longer each year. Will repairing our roads,
Generally, yeah, they are.
will repairing our roads help that at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was getting to,
Yeah.
main point.
An actual built road will make a big difference on weight restrictions and,
I think Charlie touched on it a little bit about.
yeah, I mean, it's, just taking, for instance, Sawville was a 5-ton restricted road during regular weight restrictions. It generally comes off right when we can and at the 8-week mark. But now that stretch from Honeymoon all the way down to 61 will be 10-ton and it will be basically unrestricted for the citizens, for those people that are running there. And believe it or not, there still is a lot of logging going on. Probably not like the boom days, but there's still quite a bit, and there's quite a bit going on in that area over there. So, I would like to get those roads that have that super long weight restrictions. That would be one of the things I'm going to look at hard when I submit a prioritized list to the board. Is what I see as prioritized is those roads that are on into mid-June and July, or we've got to do something with. They're just old roads and they've really never been built, and if you get a structure underneath them and get them properly drained, they'll be able to just stay within the regular weight restriction limits. So.
Thank you, Dave. There's been a lot of discussion about who has the worst road, or how many of you have shown up for the road. We cannot tell you what the worst road is by driving it. I can tell you on a day when I have a migraine, the smoothest road in the county is excruciating. But what I can tell you is that this is our engineer's passion. And although we don't authorize him the money to do a full engineering, he's able to eyeball it. Much like my husband, who's a carpenter, he can kind of tell you by your ideas and your chicken scratch on a piece of paper roughly what that house is going to cost you to build, and he can help you bring that cost down. Dave is on our roads all the time, and even if he's not answering your calls, he's getting your messages, and he's going out and he's checking and he's making sure, and he's got his staff out there, and his staff is checking in with him and letting him know. So this isn't a dart in his office where he's throwing on a map in the county. He really understands the roads and which ones are difficult to drive on. So I would like to thank all of you for coming and speaking to us this evening. I do see that a commissioner has another comment, so once that comment is done, I think we'll close it to you so that you're able to go home and spend the evening with your families.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, we had this discussion prior to this, a few days ago, as to the list and attending the Highway Committee in this presentation, which appreciated all the work that went into it. Just making up that list and assigning dollars is a huge undertaking, but it helps to inform. And so we see three identified asks with regard to this potential allocation of dollars. One is the roads and bridges, which is the greater percentage, over 90% of that allocation. And then we have the development of the gravel pit, which we made it an informed and concerted effort to make sure that in the opportunity with the land exchange that we'd be able to get a gravel resource that would help much needed with the gravel on our roads. This is a creative way of looking at using a resource that we have locally to deal with a road issue that we can sort of bring in-house to an extent. So that's another component. And then the third component was the new facilities component. If you were to look at this, if it's a fair question, our intention here with what the county has earned in stewardship of dollars to maintain a good reserve balance that earns us a very competitive rate, that if we can be good stewards and wise in how we use that opportunity to create bonding that would fund these projects to move a lot of them forward and address these issues, how would you see, just as an overall response to percentage of allocation of these dollars in retiring that debt?
Well, I think, we're looking at, it's kind of hard to tell exactly how this is going to perform. You heard me talk a little bit earlier about a 3% growth rate, which is hyper conservative versus what the 1% tax has done over the last 20 years. I'm not going to get into predictions. I've studied how the Minnesota sales tax has gone. I've looked at averages. I've looked at what Cook County has averaged over the last 20 years with having a 1% sales tax and done some projections on this. But, very, very conservatively, if we were to do, say a 30-year bond for $30 million, let's say we do a $30 million bond, whether it's 30 years or 20 years or however long that is. My belief is that we can equally manage our facilities and our road needs at the same time. If we don't, gravel pits are important too. If we don't have the gravel pits, we don't have the gravel the aggregate resources, we can't build roads. And we can't put gravel on the roads. That's important. Our facilities are aging, and they're beyond their life cycle on that. They're beyond their planned life cycle. Beyond that, we have millions of dollars of equipment just sitting out there rotting outside, which we really shouldn't. We're short of space. We don't have adequate engineering testing facilities. It's probably a matter of time before MnDOT writes us up for it. We've been warned about our testing facilities, that they aren't adequate for MnDOT testing, and certainly those testing facilities will be used when we do these roads. So yeah, I would say, if I were to look at it, I'd say, 40 to 50% would be facilities, and probably 60 to 50 to 60 would be roads, would be my anticipation of how I would recommend that the board does, but ultimately this is the board's decision. If you look at it, probably, if you did a $30 million bond, it'd be about probably close to 50-50, a little less than 50% on the facility side. But we have major needs and we have major pressing issues, and again, I'm going to say it again, in less than 6 years, we will not be putting road salt on the road because we will not have a place for it. Period. We don't have any place to store it come 2022. So it's serious. And that pile is gigantic. Period. It's about half a football field is how big that pile is, and 30 feet tall. That's a massive amount of space that we need just to store salt sand. So there's needs, and there's no getting around it, and we kick it down the road. And I know it's not sexy to put up a new building, and it's not popular, but we have to have places to house people and to house our equipment and to work on our equipment and fix our equipment and store our materials and things like that. And that's the reality of it. But I wouldn't preclude one for another. I don't think that makes sense, and nor is that really, I think, fit our mission. I think our mission is both in all of those items, and we come up with a prioritization, and we work together and come up with a prioritization. I think that can meet all those needs over a long period of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming this evening. And with that, we will close our meeting.